This evening I'm going to talk about what is called Prajna, or transcendental knowledge, sometimes called wisdom. Prajna is the sutra we chanted tonight, the Red Pine translation, which is in English, says the noble Avalokiteshvara, who was a bodhisattva, while practicing the deep practice of prajna, paramita, or the wisdom or the knowledge that it's crossed over, that sees both sides of things, that is non-dual, looked upon the five skandhas, or form, feeling, perception, concept, consciousness. This is how the awareness of the body breaks down. If you look at it, you can look at it this way. It might not be the only way, but the form, feeling, perception, concept or memory, then there's all the consciousnesses. She basically saw that they were the five skandhas, or the five heaps, sometimes translated, saw that they were empty of self-existence. He said, here, Shariputra, form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. This is the basic form idea. Whatever is form is emptiness. Whatever is emptiness is form. The same holds for sensation, and here's the other four: sensation, perception, memory, and consciousness. Here, Shariputra, all dharmas, or all truths, or all categories are defined by emptiness, not birth or destruction, purity or defilement, completeness or deficiency. So the whole polarity thing doesn't work when this is seen. When this kind of understanding, this kind of seeing, this prajna, this kind of starts out a little bit conceptual, but then as we go along, that conceptual structure, if we continue to look, starts to get weak, and what that which it is pointing at doesn't go away. So we begin to see it. Prajna. Sometimes it's thought of, it's defined as prajna is the two-edged sword, and it's the sword of Manjushri, which was a bodhisattva or enlightenment being, enlightening being. And his sword has two sides, two edges. One cuts through you as being a solid, separate being. The other cuts through everyone else, or everything other. Just a symbolic way of talking about non-duality, or fundamental truth beyond conceptual grasping, rejection, and ignorance. It's quite a project for us to really sit down with ourselves, meditate, study concepts, all of these teachings that have been going on for centuries and centuries. Quite a project for us to sit down and begin to do this ourselves. Buddhism is very much a do-it-yourself project. It's not a belief system, some belief going on, not a lot. It's mainly, you need to see this, and you're encouraged by people who have been practicing, teachers who have been practicing a long time, other students who have been practicing maybe longer than you have, encourage you to see this yourself. Sit down, hold the body very still, and begin on this path of awakening, this path of realization. The very name Buddha comes from the root word Bud, which means Sanskrit, which means awakening, the awakened one. The Buddha was the awakened one. What did he awaken to? He awoke to breakfast, ham and eggs. He awoke to nothing is separate from anything else. Kind of a simple idea. He awoke to that. He didn't just think it. Quite often we think that, well, everything is very connected, and this is not what we're talking about here. Yes, of course, things are connected. But when we start using that kind of thinking, we think some things aren't so connected as other things. And some things are more important that are connected than other things are not so important. So we get caught up in discursive thought, analysis, and so on. And right back into what is pointed out here in the sutra. So the wonderful translation by Red Pine, Bill Porter. Purity or defilement, completeness or deficiency. It's empty of that. All dharmas are defined by emptiness. They're not there. They're not there in the way we think they are. Not birth or destruction. That's quite a statement. Not birth or destruction. Something you should contemplate. We all should contemplate. One of the images that's used, I think Chandra Kirti uses it, and I don't remember which one of his writings. Buddhist scholar, monk, centuries ago, talks about taking the intellect, and it's like two sticks, rubbing them together. You rub them together, rub those sticks together, and eventually it starts to make heat. And eventually it makes fire, and that's the fire of wisdom starts to come out of that rubbing together, and those sticks get burnt up, and you don't have anything left but wisdom. Clear seeing, just an image, a way of talking about it. Prajna is also the last of the 6 paramitas, or transcendent actions of the bodhisattva, or the person, the individual who is on the bodhisattva path, the Mahayana path, the path where one has is beginning to give up working on oneself and beginning to work for the benefit of others. The first of those 6 paramitas is generosity. It's a transcendental kind of generosity. It doesn't mean just giving people stuff. It means that you're actually going to give an inch on a fundamental level that other people might not even notice. You might not get a merit badge for being generous. The next one is ethics, or morality. The next one is patience. The next one, if I say that patience doesn't mean waiting for something. The next transcendental action of the bodhisattva is vigor, or energy, which doesn't mean cranking up energy necessarily. And the 5th one is meditative absorption, or samadhi, or stabilization, or just this. And the last one is the one that is the topic, is prajna, or transcendent knowledge, wisdom. So we might have to begin, have some time, we might have to spend some time with the conceptual part of it, trying to understand the 5 skandhas are empty of a self, that if you actually look, you can actually do this yourself. You can look, sit down. It's probably a little easier if you sit down and just look at the wall, look at the floor, look at your refrigerator. Sit down, hold still, and just observe what continues to move. What continues to move is the mind. The mind keeps making up stuff. I like it, I don't like it, it's good, it's bad, it shouldn't be, it should be, they shouldn't do that, I shouldn't have done that, I can't do that anymore, on and on and on. And it's not that this isn't relatively accurate on some level. Of course, it would have to be somewhat accurate, or we wouldn't constantly buy into it. Have you noticed every time we have a conversation with somebody, we're just swapping opinions? I don't mean that to judge anyone. I'm just saying that a lot of our time is just spent saying, what do you think about what I'm thinking? What do you think about what you're thinking about what I'm thinking? Huh. It's tiring. And sometimes it gets tiring and we start to get tired out where our friend or our associate or our conversationalist is not exactly that tired yet. And we're trying to think, how can I excuse myself? Then what do? Do we lie? Or do we tell the truth? I hate you. I'm leaving. I hate what you're saying. You're boring me. Or this sucks. That might be easier. Or darn. That's all you have to say. Oh my gosh. See you later. Run out of Starbucks down the road, and since you're about 3 or 4 blocks away, just go over and sit on a park bench. And, of course, maybe your friends are a lot more entertaining and more fun. So, of course, I don't mean to pick on anyone, but I'm just saying it does get, sometimes the conversations, if not getting downright irritating, they get tedious. We're listening and we want to be polite. We want to be with the person. But we can see that our understanding of something is a little bit different maybe than that other person's. We may not be enlightened. We may not think that we're the most wonderful thinker in the world, but we can see where the person is so kind of wound up in their thought patterns that they're kind of making a trap for themselves. And if you notice, you can't really tell unless the person comes out and asks you, Jim, what should I do? They have to make it very clear. What should I do? Well, I don't know. What are you doing now? Well, you can see what I'm doing. I'm miserable. Or maybe they would be open to a suggestion from you. What do you think I should do? Well, you have to be really careful about that, even though your first thought would be, I think you should get a divorce. That might be your first thought. But then again, we can't step that deeply into somebody's territory. Or maybe we can, if it's a really long time friend and we've been listening to this story over and over again, maybe we could suggest that. And say, have you ever thought about getting a divorce or seeing an attorney? I don't mean to laugh. Actually, I do mean to laugh. I'm in my 5th marriage, so I have the right to laugh. And last marriage, right? It was their last one, right? I'm ahead of, she's only had, how many? 2. What are you going to say? Go ahead. Not in the air.
This is your talk.
Oh, it's my talk. Okay. So prajna, it's just a fancy word. But we need some kind of a special word because it's more than just ordinary knowledge. There is a kind of prajna that is the prajna that sees, knows hot from cold, and that's ordinary kind of intelligence that operates out of that kind of understanding. But as we go along, the prajna or the understanding or the insight or the wisdom can, if you cultivate it, if you'll actually hold still and endeavor to see below your thought patterns. I like to say below the radar of ego. Ego wants results. Ego wants reference points, and ego wants to know what's right, who's wrong. But wisdom, if your allegiance from is changing over from just being right, from just being somebody who knows everything, or for somebody who never makes any mistakes, if your allegiance is slowly shifting over from that, over you're inspired by, you really actually want to know what is really, really true. Beyond my own personal belief or welfare or anything, you wonder what is really true. Rather than just believing in this or believing in Islam or Christianity or being an atheist or being an agnostic or on and on and on. People will settle for some kind of a position. They go, well, this kind of works. I think I'll just be this. Investigation's over with. I don't have to look anymore. Now I can just be a Mormon. I'll just be a Mormon. I'll just follow orders. Just do as I'm told. Believe what I'm told. And I want to emphasize this. I don't mean that this is wrong. There are some people that's the only way they can live their life and be happy. They are not ready to do anything beyond that. They're not ready to look deeply down into their own personal, their mind, their life, their heartbeat, and the relationships they have with others. They're not ready to do that. And I am not here to force it or sell it to anyone. You won't see this advertised anywhere. You just, however you got here, I don't know, but there's not much in the way of advertising. A little bit, mostly announcements. And if someone were to come in and say, I don't really, should I meditate? I don't know. Well, what do you think? You're meditating. Don't you? Do you think I should meditate? I don't know. I don't know if you should or not. So in other words, the path that this will put you on is a path of respect. First, you'll begin to respect this. You'll really respect your own neurosis. You'll stop trying to fix yourself. Don't do it. Don't try to fix something you have not examined. That would be like someone saying, well, I'm a surgeon, so there's something wrong with you. Well, I'll just cut you open. Something hurts inside. Let's see what it is. This is kind of the attitude that's sometimes taken by some people who are in the business of helping others. Let's try this. Let's try that. Well, let's see. That hurts. Let's put this drug on them. Let's put this drug. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not against therapy. So my best friends are therapists. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. So I'm not against therapy. I'm not against psychiatry. I'm not against other religions or other traditions or other ways of working with the mind. Shamanism, from shamanism to yoga practices, or you name it, I won't be against it. But I may not be for it either. What am I for? I'm for training the mind. Train your mind. Find out who the hell you are. You've got, I might have a few years left, but you guys have all got probably lots of years left. You're all young. Take some of the time out of your life to find out who you are fundamentally. Don't take anybody's word for anything, including mine. Find out who you are. Find out what this me feeling is. If you begin to look at that, you'll see that the reference points for that are very, very slim, because that means you're beginning to step out of the mundane path of right and wrong, success and failure, life and death, purity or defilement, completeness or deficiency, polarities. You're stepping out of that into no man's land, no woman's land. You're stepping into an area that doesn't have the kind of reference points that you would have on a mundane path. You're stepping on a supra-mundane path. This is what Prajna is about. This is what you're beginning to, you could say, develop by exercising that awareness muscle, that stretch the awareness so you can see what this is. I often say why questions they're all right, but they're quite circular, because if you say why, you get a because. If you say why about that, you get another because. But if you say what, everything stops until you get something that comes back as a response to that what. So what goes down into it? Why goes like this? Questions at this point? Shokan.
In the Shobo Genzo, there's a sentence that reads, if bodhisattvas want to experience the profound manifestation of prajna, they should study as they would study empty space.
Yes.
How do you study as you would study empty space?
Good question. You would study as you study empty space by sitting down and watching what is arising. If when you hold still, you'll see what arises. Your thoughts arise, your emotions, your memories, you just watch. But if you don't do anything but just hold still and observe, eventually what you start to see is the space in which things occur. It takes a while because you can't actually see space. But by virtue of seeing something arise, you begin to see there's room around that. It's like walking in a closet and then you walk into a gymnasium. Something's different here. Closet. So you would sit down and observe whatever is arising in your mind, thought patterns, emotions, memories, likes, dislikes, and you would eventually see over time, you would eventually see the spaciousness that is around that. It's like another image that's sometimes used. If you look at the ocean, you see a lot of waves, but if you take another look at it, you see one hell of a lot of water. Waves are just expressions of water. Objects that arise in space are expressions of space. More?
Is that the same thing as a manifestation of prajna?
Yes. More?
Sometimes in this text, they talk about prajna as wisdom beyond wisdom.
Yes.
How is wisdom beyond itself?
Because it's wisdom beyond wisdom is a way of, we're using relative terms, wisdom, Buddha nature, delusion, plus and minus, we're using those. So in order to use words to talk about wisdom in a way that says it's transcendent. It's the wisdom, paramita, the prajna, the wisdom which is crossed over, it's gone beyond, wisdom beyond wisdom. We have to say that it's wisdom, but it's wisdom that's beyond wisdom. So another way of saying that is you could ask, what does wisdom actually, if there's wisdom, what does wisdom see? Wisdom just sees wisdom. It doesn't see anything else. That's why it's non-dual. It's not two. There is no separation. The polarity of life and death, gone. The polarity of success and failure, gone. The polarity of present and gone, gone. Gone, gone. But also, as soon as you see this gone, it comes back. Because anytime you have one thing, you're always going to have something else. I know it's not that funny. Go ahead.
How can someone be looking at wisdom and be ignorant of it?
They think it's separate. They think they're separate from it. They think it's something else. So they either give it credit or they blame it. That's bad. Sheldon's doing really well. Oh, now Sheldon, I'm doing so good. Success and failure. I only say that to Sheldon because I know Sheldon can handle that. I think his 35th birthday is coming up pretty quick, right? More.
How can you relate to that separation?
Very good. Just see the separation. So we train. This is a monastery. We come in here, we sit down, and if you're a practice resident, a temple resident, you're scheduled to sit 6.5 hours a day unless you make arrangements to go to a job or do some other kind of work. That's the basic schedule. And some people are required to do that. And so you would come in and just continue to see how things are separate. But if you don't look at how things are separate, if you just think about it and try to think your way out of it, that doesn't seem to, it seems to be need to be more than that. There needs to be some conceptualization, some contemplation, and some just hanging out and watching what moves.
Another line reads, the very profound manifestation of Prajna is subtle and fathomless. How is wisdom subtle?
I think what might be pointed out there is it's so it's so nuanced. It's so delicate. It's so it doesn't have a lot of contrast, so you can see, this is it. I think that might be what is being referred to there in Dogen. More. Yes, sir. Sokuzan.
When you're trying to give a situation the benefit of the doubt or not go to war, sometimes a little voice comes up, who's going to look out for me or who's going to protect me. How do you have a willingness to relinquish the impulse to protect oneself or prioritize oneself?
So some would say you need to just work on it and relinquish, and I would say a little bit differently. I would say just watch the resistance, because and maybe the first time, second time, eighth time, it'll just be the same. It'll just be aggravating because you see that you can't do it. You can't stop it. But what's happening as you watch that, nothing happens twice. So as you watch that, you'll notice it's always taking a different angle on everything. It's always showing up a little bit different way, and you'll be able to see the way in which it is getting fueled. It is getting fueled out of fear of non-existence. It's the fear of being no one, being not being. So by watching that, the way that gets fueled, then there's a no guarantee, of course, but then there's more of a possibility that you can actually somehow back out of fueling that. It's like not really putting any more wood on the fire. It's burning, but you're not going to just keep hauling lumber over there to burn to keep that going. There's kind of a willingness for something to just fall apart. Just like it says in the Heart Sutra translation there by Kobun, gone, gone, gone beyond, gone completely beyond. Gate, gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhisattva. Or Kobun's translation is falling apart, falling apart, falling apart, nothing to do. So it would be that kind of a willingness to just completely fall apart. Much different than is taught in lots of places. You've got to have self-esteem. You have to build yourself up. You have to have accomplishments. You need to have pats on the back for things. Whereas what you're working with there is just a matter of observing. Use your own awareness to just don't let yourself off the hook. Keep continuing not to blame or not to look somewhere else for a cause. If you look somewhere else, so the cause is right in it. It's right there. The fuel is there. The burning is there. Everything is right there that you need for.
It seems like there's something that's insisting on suffering.
Yeah.
No matter how much you see,
it's a good way of saying it.
That buying in the story causes suffering. It hurts. Like buying in my own bullshit, I get anxious or get upset. So I see I'm causing my suffering, but something continues to insist that that's the way I need to do it. So how do you see where that fuel's coming from when you see the story, but the fuel seems very hidden?
I think it's just a matter of persisting. I don't, from the way you're describing that, I'm not seeing where you need any adjustment from me. Just need to continue to sit and see that. You're actually seeing what you need to see. It's just going to, you can't just kick it out. You know, oh, now I see it out, just get rid of it. It has to kind of wear itself out. Yes.
Several questions have come in. The
Okay.
first one from Nathan in California.
Okay.
His question is, we are all afraid to let go. Where is the truth?
That's a pretty broad question. I would just say, see the way you hang on. If you try to force letting go without seeing the way in which you hang on to it. I'm just using this as an example. It's not really like fingers around a stick, but it is. There's a way in which everyone hangs on in a little bit different way to whatever it is their issue is, fixation. And so first, sitting practice of meditation is a good way to do this. Hold still and watch your mind the way it keeps clamping down on things. So if you watch the way the hanging on takes place, then you could say that it will be seen over time. Where there's more of a chance of being able to see how ridiculous this kind of hanging on is. It's just creates more difficulty. So a lot of sitting practice. Holding still, sit down, time yourself, schedule yourself, sit for an hour a day, do some block sitting once every couple of weeks, 4 hours, 5 hours. Come here and sit if you're close to the temple. Yes.
The next question from Shane out in California.
Shane.
He has two questions actually.
Okay.
What makes why questions circular and not linear, i.e. like a line going back to beginningless time? And second, is the act of asking a why question taking exception to what's in front of you?
Yeah. It is. In a way, why is you want an answer, and so you're reinforcing relative truth. You're reinforcing the very illusion that we're born into, which is relative. We actually believe that we're born. We believe that we die, and we believe that we're solid, separate beings. And I'm not saying there isn't a quality of that happening, but we grasp onto it. We hang on to it. That's why we're affected by people's criticisms. We count on other people's approval and acceptance. This is a mundane path, and it's not that it doesn't work somewhat. And if we live forever, it probably worked just fine. But everyone here, everyone online, everyone is going to die sooner or later. This very thing that you call me and myself and my stuff, my opinions, my ideas, is going to come to an end. You may have warning, you may not. Death comes without warning. This body will be a corpse. At that time, the Dharma or the truth will be my only help. I must practice it with exertion, part of the 4 reminders. So it's all we're really saying there is, take a look at this. This is you're here, you're alive. You don't know how you got here. You don't know if you can be a human being again. Good luck. You don't know if you even want to be. Maybe you'd rather be a frog. You seem to have a pretty good life. Short. More on that question?
Just what makes why questions circular and not linear?
Think about it. If you say why is something true, you'll get an answer, and then that'll take you to another one. They're always very limited. Why don't I feel good? Because I ate too much ice cream. Why did I eat too much ice cream? Because I like ice cream. Why do I like ice cream? Tastes good. Okay, case closed. Go get ice cream. The only way you're going to stop it from being circular is stop asking questions. And if you stop asking questions, you're stuck with your world. I mean, it's not that you're stuck with it, but it's your world. It's your ice cream or no ice cream world. pain or no pain, uncomfortable. But a what question actually puts it, it won't actually solve it, but it actually puts you square in front of whatever it is you're asking about. So you can't necessarily go to something, it will take you down into the situation. It can also be circular. So, and also why questions could be somewhat linear if you're asking that, like the Buddha did. Why is there suffering? There is suffering because we want things to be different than they are. That was his why question. And that's how he came up with the Four Noble Truths. Life is suffering. Why? Because we want things to be different than they are. Desire. And how do we, can that come to an end? Yes. How do we bring that to an end? Through awareness. See what is true. Shila, Samadhi, and Prajna. Discipline, meditation, and wisdom, or Prajna. Yes.
Question from Brett in Philadelphia.
Brett McGinnis.
Yes. When you say that residence sits for 6.5 hours a day, that really just seems like Olympic level. How are the residents able to handle the physical toll of that much sitting?
Because they get up and move around. This is not a prison. They might sit for, someone might sit for 20 minutes and go get a glass of water and come back. But the sitting is from 7 to 9 in the morning. It's not Olympic, believe me. There's no Olympic. You know, it's not. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's probably easier to sit in this monastery temple than it is in your own bedroom or your kitchen or your living room, just because you have company. You have other people doing the same thing. It doesn't seem quite so useless. And so you would sit and then you would get up. You're not required to sit there unmoving. So you might sit, you might get up, go get some coffee, come back into the zendo, sit back down. You could stand and face the wall. You could do slow walking meditation on your own, timed on your own. Sit back down again. The idea is it's cumulative. After a while, you realize that every day you've sat for long periods of time. So is anybody in here doing a full schedule? Well, you were for a while, and now you're doing some work in the afternoon, but you're sitting 4 hours a day anyway, probably. 4.5 hours a day.
Or plus the half an hour in the middle session, so 5.
Okay, 5 hours a day. Senchu, you're somewhere at 5 or 6, 5. Yeah, so you're going into a 14-day solitary retreat, which you'll be sitting 8 hours a day, right up in on the next floor, which is our retreat facility or apartment. So it can be done. Quite often the thought of sitting a lot is overwhelming to think about it. Certainly was for me when I first heard about this long-term stuff years ago. But it really only, you just sit there and next thing you know, 10 minutes have gone by and then an hour's gone by. And really, you're always just here. You're never back there or up there. You're always right here. So time takes on a different kind of dimension.
What causes the 5 virtues to arise?
Name them.
Let's see if I can remember. I remember 4. Let's see, the first one. Do I have to do it in order?
I won't know if you do them in order or not.
Patience, generosity.
Well, you're talking about the paramitas.
Paramitas.
Okay, there's 6 of them.
Oh, there's 6. Okay, so yeah.
So what causes them to rise?
Yeah, actually, can you tell me what those are again?
Yeah, they're generosity, patience, what's the next one?
There's vigor.
No, that's the 4th one.
Ethics.
Ethics, yeah, that's there's you get them. See, there's generosity, ethics, which would be discipline, and then there's patience or virya, and then there's virya. It's not virya.
Shanti.
Huh?
Shanti.
Shanti. See? Some people know stuff. So what causes those two? The other two is the fourth one is energy or virya, or sandru in Tibetan, and then samadhi or meditative stabilization or absorption, and then the last one, which is prajna. And so what causes those, what we do is we work with those. You actually work with those prajna paramita right on back to dana paramita or generosity. You actually concentrate on those and work on those and think about those and reflect on those and see how those apply. But there's different ways of understanding those that aren't just the conventional thing of giving away stuff, but really understanding that the generosity starts with yourself. That first, just have some generosity towards yourself, which doesn't mean caving in and buying into your thought patterns, but just not give yourself such a hard time.
Would you say that they arise naturally in accordance with one's practice?
I think it's a natural teaching, so I think they may, but I think it seems to be necessary to actually look at each one of those yourself and see how you work with energy or virya, how you work with morality or ethics. Ethics is not just following rules and towing the line. It's actually spreading one's awareness out and understanding the fundamental nature of relationship, your relationship to your world, your relationship to others. It's an easy way out to just follow rules. And then you can think of some time when you don't have to really follow them because it's an exception.
I've heard before that just that to have a thought of killing is like killing itself, though conventionally it obviously isn't. But
what's your question? I heard you.
Is that something that we can change through meditative practice?
Well, I think we can get more clear on what that's about. But as far as to say that having a thought of that is like, there are some people who teach. My teacher, Trungpa Rinpoche, even said that just to get angry was to completely destroy whole retreat practices, and just this way of kind of frightening you into being a good boy. Something. I think we need to bring more awareness to that and really not be quite so fundamentalist about it, and just give people a hard time about if you do this, then that will cause this. If you do this, that'll cause that. I think that's just being a little bit too presumptuous. When I say presumption, I mean presumption. To presume because you think something is the case that applies to everyone. Very, very, very thin ice there from the point of view of realization. We're right back into relative truth of trying to control everything. There's a stinginess on the part of that addresses first paramita of dana paramita, generosity, of not really opening up and let's see what this is fundamentally about. This doesn't mean that you have to empty your pockets out and give all your money away. I'm not saying that, but we need to bring our awareness into that kind of stinginess. Yes.
Is no control a type of control?
What do you mean by no control?
To see a thought arise and just have awareness of that thought.
I think this shows up somewhat in the way I talk about this, but a good example of that is this teachings of the Zen monk who lived in the middle of the last century, who was Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, lived in California, died in 1970. He used the image of a cow. He says you give your cow or your mind a large pasture so there's some kind of expansiveness instead of putting it in a box and trying to train it with a whip or something, or with one of these sticks. Instead, you give it some room, let it wander around, and just keep an eye on it. Keep some fences up maybe, but make sure there's lots of room there so that you can do some exploration, so you can see more clearly what's happening. The cow being an image for the mind. Any other,
There's a question from Jay and Robert are listening in.
Jay.
It came in a few minutes ago, so
Yes.
regarding something you had said, and I asked for a little more clarification, but
Mhm.
don't have it yet. Anyway, his question is, what about protecting children, i.e. students?
So, well, I'm not sure where he's. What about protecting students? Protect them. I'm not sure where he's coming.
I can't remember the context
Okay.
of the part of the
Uh,
talk you were.
well, we should anything that seems to be threatened. If something seems to be threatened, we should protect it, especially children. I'm not sure what
Maybe he'll.
some
Maybe
aspect
that's
of it I
what
may
it
be
is.
missing there. Further questions? Anywhere? Yes, Sheldon.
I had a question about the 5 skandhas.
Yes.
A lot of times it's either memory or concepts. My question is, what makes memory a concept?
I think that's Red Pine's translation of samskaras, which is the 4th skandha. You have form and feeling, perception, and then concept or samskaras or memory. And I think that's the way when I say think, I don't know what he actually thinks, but that's the way he translates that 4th skandha as memory. And I think there's something there, it gives you a better feeling for how that works, because you're constantly remembering things in terms of concepts. The concepts ride right along on the surface of anything you perceive. And if it's not in the room and you do anything with it, it has a conceptual structure to it. Can't really think about past and future without strong concepts. You can have an image of a person fly fishing, but you wouldn't have any way, without concepts, you have no way of placing it in any kind of past or future. Or is it me? Is it someone else? Is it what's going on there? Is it just, this probably is what people experience who get elderly or people who get Alzheimer's. Probably the whole conceptual structure starts to fall apart. It's got to be pretty terrifying to someone who's used to having lots of reference points. This is my family, this is my mother, this is my son, this is my dog, and you just to not be able to remember people would be very difficult. Yes.
Does that mean that all of our memories are built of concepts?
I don't know if they're built of that, but I think they're probably secured by it in some way. As the one I like to use is, I say, remember a dream that you had. Now remember something that happened to you 3 days ago. And now imagine something that's going to happen to you when you go to the football game on Sunday or something. And then look at all 3 of those and tell me which one's in the past, which one's in the future, and which one is not real. It's the same structure. What is it that follows along with that and identifies that? Is that a concept? Is that what is it that can tell you? How do you know past and future? How do we know any of that? And what I would say to that is find out. Find out, because there is something to be discovered there. And I can tell you what the discovery is.
Tell us.
Yeah, you want me to? Time is a hype. It looks like there's some kind of linear thing going on. I'm so proud of myself for saying that.
If time isn't linear, then what is it?
It's not. It's a concept. It's non-existent. It's a concept. The concept exists, but what it actually is, it's not there. You know, it's like the last time I said that, Ruby was here, and she says, "Well, why do they have clocks then?" So that wasn't a bad. When you're 8 years old, you can say that. Why do they have clocks? Yes.
A question from Sokuzan in Traverse City.
Yes, go on.
She asks, how can we practice observing meditation without strengthening the sense of the observer separate from the observed?
Don't worry about it. You don't really have to. If you sit down, hold the body still, your mind is going to do whatever it wants to do based on the causes and conditions that got you to the cushion in the first place. Your only job, from my point of view, is to sit down, be quiet, keep your eye, keep all your senses open, particularly the eyes, and watch what's moving. Even the sense of an observer will fluctuate all the time. There's somebody there, and then there's nobody seeing what's being seen. There's just seeing, and then there's a somebody there who's seeing it, registering it. It's usually, if you're dealing with the three poisons, passion, aggression, and ignorance, there's going to be an observer. There's going to be a thinker, and that thinker could be upset because you're thinking about your problems and what somebody did to you. And how dare they do this? Don't they know who you are? I'm not going to let them get away with that again. We do this all the time. So you could get rid of an observer if you, no, that's not it. Wait. Sorry. You don't have to get rid of something that is non-existent. Non-existent. The observer, there's only observation. There is no observer. There's no being behind the observation. I can see everyone here. There's no one seeing this. If there was somebody seeing this, then there would be somebody having thoughts. If there's somebody having thoughts, then there's somebody who's operating out of hope and fear, out of success and failure. And there's not. If there were, I would be very embarrassed for everything I just said. I have no proof for anything. More?
Not from her, but Jay is back. They've had some difficulty.
Just like a bad penny, Jay came back.
They're losing their connection every few minutes. So
Yes,
his context was, how do you protect children, the defenseless, without going to war?
Okay, well, it's not just about not going to war. I mean, I say don't go to war, or I say lose the war often, but it's not about just that. It's about seeing what that warfare is about actually bringing awareness into that and seeing that warfare. And of course, you know, if someone is defenseless and you can get in the way of their someone harming them, you do it. You don't have to think about it or have a philosophy. You don't even need to, you know, if you don't need to my say so about it at all, of course. Protect people. I think there's a deeper part to his question, and I'm not sure if it's not showing up so that I can respond to it. But let me just say it this way. I'm not saying so much don't go to war. I mean, of course I say that. Sometimes I say that. But really I'm saying just watch the way we keep fighting with things. Some things maybe we need to have some tension over. Some things we need to resist. Some things we need to maybe push on. But we should push on things out of awareness, not out of warfare or fighting or winning, losing strategy. You do it with awareness. If you're living out of your awareness and out of your understanding, then you would naturally stand in the way. Just like if you saw a dog, someone's pet, someone mistreating their dog or their child. You know, you see this like in the grocery store, you know, so all you can do is stop from saying something to someone who's wailing on their child, which it does happen. What do you do about that? I don't know. What would you do about it? You know, I say don't think ahead of time about that. Be in that situation, see what happens. Maybe one time you'll walk up and say, you can't do that here. And they might say, well, where can I do it? Home? You know, how do you work with that? There's no magic formula. The very best use of your time, from my understanding, is train your mind. You're not going to be able to fix the world and fix all the crazy stuff that goes on in the world, but at least you can be sane yourself. At least you can start to be sane yourself and not be constantly at war with yourself, so that war overflows onto the world and adds to the confusion that's already there. Train your mind. Don't even have to be a Buddhist. Just see what is true. Train your mind. Slow down. Can dedicate the mirror.
In the back of the red books, chant books, is the dedication of merit. I'd also like to remind everybody we have a donation box in the back. And appreciate all of your help financially.
May the merit penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiho San Chi Shi Son Mu Sa Mo Ku Sa Mo The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokuzan Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with